To study a new unit, which is ecology. We are going to understand what ecology is and the research methods that scientists use to study the environment. But first, let's review some of the terms that are not new to you. For example, we have environment. What is the environment? Of course, you know that the environment are the surroundings or the conditions in which a person, an animal, or a plant lives or operates. When we speak about environmental science, we consider not just the natural world, but also the effects of human activity, including social institutions, cultural attitudes, agriculture procedures, and industrial conditions, how they affect also the natural world. If we speak about ecology, we know that ecology focuses specifically on the interdependent relationships between living things and their environment. It is not just how the environment affects the organism, but how the organism affects the environment as well as other organisms in that environment. Let's look carefully at the term ecology. Where does it come from? It comes from a Greek word, oikos, meaning house. And this word makes sense if we think of Earth as our home and all organisms as members of Earth's household. But it was a German biologist who was Ernest Haeckel, and he was the one who coined the term ecology because he wanted to encourage biologists to consider the ways organisms interact. Because until that time, most scientists studied only a plant or an animal as though it existed in isolation, as if it did not affect its surroundings and as if its surroundings did not affect it. Later on, you will study about Darwin, Charles Darwin, and you will study also about Alfred Wallace, how they were the ones who made clear the connection between the physical characteristics of a place and the type of species that is found there. So this summarizes that field work is necessary in the education of any good ecologist, and Darwin and Wallace were field scientists. You know that Darwin, and that is not his picture, of course, that is the picture of one of the tortoises he encountered in the Galapagos Island. You know that Darwin went around the world in a 5-year trip aboard the Beagle, and he went studying species, studying geological features. And Wallace also was a scientist who did field work. He went to the Amazon basin, he went to Indonesia and to other parts of the world, also collecting specimens, collecting species, and studying. And we are going to read about them later on when we study the theory of evolution. Okay, so what are the different scientific approaches that all ecologists use? They are observation, experimentation, and modeling. In Pearson, you can watch a video that shows the work of biologists and ecologists and how they study parts of the biosphere. It has been assigned to you, so please watch it before you start doing your classwork. Okay, when we speak about observation, which usually is the first step in asking ecological questions, we know that observation may take place over short or over long periods of time, usually over long periods of time, because you know that the environmental changes do not occur over short periods of time, so scientists have to do longer surveys. and they can do direct surveys or indirect surveys. That in the direct surveys, they do those for those species that are easy to follow, and the indirect surveys, they use them for species that are difficult to track. You're going to read that sometimes transmitters are placed on wild animals to follow them in their natural environment. Another type of scientific research is experimentation. Not all experiments are done in the lab. Sometimes hypotheses have to be tested, but the work has to be done in fields. Of course, field studies are a little bit more difficult because in a lab, the scientist controls the variables, controls what is happening. But in field studies, the scientists cannot control all of the variables because the field studies are performed where organisms live. Then you're going to read about modeling. These are used when some events are difficult to study directly, so scientists can use computer models, mathematical models to describe and model nature. And they can even manipulate variables, and they can learn more about organisms and ecosystems. Okay, so let's stop the video here, and please let's go to Google Classroom and let's see what our classwork is going to be about.